everyone. This is Liz coming back to you on another weekend in May, right in the middle, or June. Today's June 1st, right in the middle of spring rush. And I have someone here that I've been trying to get on for a long time and finally coerced her into joining me. And I will let her introduce herself and tell me where she works, first of all, and then we'll do a backstory.
Well, I'm Chellie, and I'm a call center agent at Augusta Life Care.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about where you were born, a little bit about your family, kind of what makes you are who you are today.
Oh my, I'm originally from Kansas City, Kansas. Born and raised on the Kansas side. I now am in Missouri. I like it better over here. A lot more to do. I've raised my family over here in Missouri, but again, grew up in Kansas, so I'm still a Kansas girl. So I have split loyalties. Um, my family is originally from down there, or over there. It's about an hour and a half away from where I'm at now, and always be.
Siblings?
Um, I actually was raised as an only child, and I do have three or two half brothers and a half sister. My parents were remarried. They were divorced when I was young, so didn't really grow up around them. So it was just more me and my mom and my stepdad for a few years, and then just me and my mom.
Great. So I've been excited to have you on because you have a powerful story that I think will affect others and bless them. And so tell me a little bit about when you got married, what your relationship with your husband was like, and a little bit about him.
Well, um, my husband that I lost in 2015, we had actually been together for 20 years. When we met, I had two sons already. I had been married and divorced previously, and it was quite by accident that we met. But he became my best friend instantly. And unfortunately, again, I lost him way too soon, but we did get my boys raised. And yeah, we just struggled through life, um, but we did okay. So,
Excellent. And did you both work during that time?
well, he was a primary. He was actually a lineman for telecommunications, and I would work intermittently. He didn't have any children from previous relationships, so it was all about me and my boys. And they were, shoot, I'm going to say they were 5 and 9 when we got married, or maybe 4 and 9, somewhere in there. So they were quite young still. And he helped me raise them. Their dad moved back to Wisconsin, so he wasn't a big part of their lives. So again, it was just me and him for the 20 years. And
And tell me a little bit about when you lost him and a little bit of the story behind that. I know that's challenging, but it's a big part of your story.
well, yeah, for so a couple of years, just to back it up just a little, a couple of years prior to where when I lost him, he had had a mild heart attack. At that time, I was working a job. I was a business office manager for the largest nursing home, skilled nursing facility in the state of Missouri, putting in a lot of hours at that time. And he had his first heart attack. We always knew he had high blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Had his first heart attack. To give you a little bit of perspective, my husband was 11 years older than I was. So we knew he had the high blood pressure, but we did not anticipate that. So I backed up and came home. In the meantime, I wanted to start cooking healthier. And rather than, both of you working full time, sometimes you eat out and you just weren't paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge red flag. So it got my attention. So in the meantime, by that time, we already had my youngest son had his first daughter, and that's a big part. I raise her now. So I was taking care of him, staying home, cooking more, gardening, getting the chickens, just really taking it all in. I stayed home for about a year. We were raising her. Um, she was 3 years old and just barely turned three. July 21st of 2013. She was visiting her other grandparents and was in a vehicle with her other grandmother. And unfortunately, they were hit by an Amtrak train.
Mm.
And by the grace of God, they both survived. Rebecca was in the back. Fortunately, her grandmother had enough presence of mind to always put Rebecca in the middle car seat or in the middle seat.
Incredible.
Because had she been next to the door, we wouldn't be talking about her now.
Mhm.
Anyhow, live flight to Children's Mercy. She sustained severe head injury.
Mhm.
It completely scalped her, broke her femur, collapsed lung, fractured skull, several vertebrae. It was just not good. They told us not to expect too much.
Mhm.
And because after 3 days, they took her off of all pain medication and she was completely unresponsive. I had told my son and his wife at that time, we got three because they were young.
Yeah.
When they
Is
had
that
her.
why you had her?
Yeah. We would keep her during the week. And then so we could afford to put her in preschool, whereas they were still, struggling with that. She was very, very smart, just quick as a whip. And so she needed that social interaction. She
Yes.
needed that. So we had her in there and she was doing very well. Anyway, so they would get her on the weekends, take her to their house, and they lived with the other grandparents. They would take her out there for the weekend. And on this particular Sunday, we had said, keep her till Monday. Otherwise, she'd already been back home.
Right.
And Grandma had decided to take her to the swimming pool. And through a series of unfortunate events, we ended up at the hospital.
Hmm.
So I told the kids while we were at the hospital, I've always been the head of the house.
Mhm.
My husband was the president, but I was the vice president, and the vice president took care of all the details.
Yes.
He just maintained veto authority, and he didn't use it very often, but when he did, we all listened.
Mhm.
And anyway, long story short, I told the kids, look, we got three ways. They can go in with the doctors and they can explain it, then you can come back out. I'll try to help you understand. 2, I can go in with you, or 3, I can do it and then I will explain everything that's going on. They opted for me to go in and just handle everything. Now, at this time, I had already gone back to work at a lower level position
Mhm.
because I didn't want anything that I just wanted a no-brainer.
Yes.
I didn't want to think. I was too into my family and health and the
Just trying to
baby.
survive.
Yeah, exactly. But I was working. I always carried the health insurance and things of that
Yeah.
nature. Anyway, so they were wonderful and gave me some time off. And I'm just trying to put this together here real quick.
So then
Anyway,
she was in the coma.
she was in a coma. Again, they finally, after day 5, they did an MRI or a
Mhm.
CT. I'm not sure. I believe it was an MRI. And that's when they came back and they told us again, don't expect much. Every neuron in her brain was torn.
Mm.
He described it like a bowl of jello that's already set that
Wow.
then shook up.
Yeah.
And so she was trying to reconnect. They did get her out of the ICU. So we got her in a regular room. she started to become responsive, and they told us that was about as far as we were probably going to get.
Mm-hmm.
But she wasn't communicating or anything of that nature. It was like the lights were on, but nobody was home.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't care. I told God to just give her back to me. Just
Yes.
give her back to me. And they continued to tell us, don't expect much. And finally, I got kind of tired of it. And I told them, look, her and God are talking.
Yeah.
And when they make their decision, they'll let us know.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I appreciate your medical opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
16 days later, I did go stay at the hospital 24/7. I was there. 16 days later, she woke up and she knew me.
Incredible.
And
Total miracle.
oh, she knew me. And they told me, well, don't get too excited yet. I said, no, no, no. She knows me.
Yeah.
And at 3 years old, she had enough wits about her to tell me when they said, do you know where you are? And she kind of looked around a little, mind you, her head's all
Yeah.
still, and she had a feeding tube. And she said, I at the hospital. Why am I at the hospital? She had no recollection of the accident, but she had enough wits to know,
At 3.
at 3. And so a lot of PTOT speech. They told us 6 to 8 months we would be there for recovery. And we were there a total of 30 days, and I brought her home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
When they took the feeding tube out, funny story, she thought she had a mouse. She saw herself in the mirror and she thought she had a mouse up her nose. So, yeah, that was quite funny. Anyway, yeah, after 30 days from the date of the accident, I brought her home. A lot of trips to the city, a lot of trips to therapists, but once they had that feeding tube off of her and she was able to eat solid foods again, because she had to go through all of that, go through the withdrawal from the opiates,
Yes.
which
Poor
wasn't
kid.
fun. Yeah, that wasn't fun to watch. We brought her home. When I asked, they told me though, a lot of people want to bring them home, but it doesn't work.
Yes.
And but I think you can do it.
Incredible. I love it.
By the grace of God, I brought her home. A lot of trips to the city, to all the different therapy sessions, neuropsychologists to make sure her brain was developing. She's 14 today. Getting
Wow.
ready to be a freshman in high school. It's
Wow.
just me and her now. When she returns in her homework, she does make really good grades. She's an AB student, doesn't require any special services. She's in mainstream classes. She does have a serious scar.
Mhm.
It just literally peeled her scalp back. If you didn't know it, you wouldn't know.
And what about her neurons? Did they develop? Does she have any recollection of the accident, knowing what happened to her, or is it just what you explained to her?
Yeah, she did have night terrors for
Mhm.
quite a while. They don't seem to be as prevalent today as they were back then. But actually, any actual direct recollection, she could remember before. She knew her and her grandma were on their way to the swimming pool, but that was the last thing she could remember.
Incredible.
But she could remember everything before that.
Yeah.
So only that one section, which is fine by me.
Mhm. In the middle of that time, though, let's go back. Were you trying to work, or did they give you a leave of absence?
They held my position for 30 days, and I really did enjoy. I felt it was a small company. They were family, and so I had to leave. I gave my notice, and and I'll get to a funny part about that later. But I left on good terms. They completely understood. I was a distribution center manager. All the truck drivers took up money for us,
Mm-hmm.
money for us. I stayed friends with a lot of them on Facebook. I stayed friends with the company. They were just my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up going back there.
Wow. And how did you pay for all of this medical care?
Well, the kids had at that time had Medicaid on her,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately that wasn't what did it. I ended up getting a substantial settlement for her, so that we had to go through after my husband passed. So we get Becca to a point about 12 months later. That's when they gave us the all clear on her that she's good to go. And
Running
so,
around and playing and talking and learning
yep,
to read.
yep. Oh, she was already reading. This kid, I'm telling you, was just amazing previous to the accident. And what they told us was, so at that age, neurons are forming.
Mm-hmm.
So hers were torn. So they learned to do this.
Wow.
So whereas Becca can, no matter what they told me, everybody else goes A, B, C. Well, Becca may have to go A.5 to B. So she may have to find a different way to do things sometimes, but she can always get there.
Got
So
it.
I've never allowed her to use the accident as a crutch,
Mm-hmm.
as understanding. I always make sure everyone is aware that sometimes she might struggle with that process,
Yeah.
but give her a minute because she's going to run with it.
Wow.
And knock wood, because I haven't allowed that. Well, I was in a train wreck type of attitude.
Yeah.
The attitude I tell her is, I was in a train wreck. What do you got?
No kidding. No
You
kidding.
know, you can't do nothing to me. I took on a train and I won, and I'm here, and I can do anything I want to do.
So
So,
what was happening with your husband during that time when she had the accident?
well, he was, knock wood, he was doing fine. I stayed home again, totally home cooking, no processed anything, everybody because of her health and his health. And I'm telling you, we were clean eaters, so to speak. Absolutely nothing processed. I had thrown away all the, you know, easy dinners
Yeah.
from the freezer and the cabinets, and no canned food unless I canned it. I did get into canning at that time. He did a lot of hunting, so we always had deer meat, just different things, learning
Mm-hmm.
to do things differently. And so we got her back to school. We got her in a preschool program, a different preschool program, because now, no matter what, she's federally qualified for these extra programs. So she did receive OT, occupational therapy, and physical therapy through the school district so that I could go back to work. And it put her
Mm-hmm.
in a form of Head Start.
Mm-hmm.
But they kept, when they were testing her for placement, they kept telling me she has to miss something. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, she's scoring off the charts. I'm like, because of her head injury, she's still considered frontal lobe damage, severe traumatic brain injury,
Yes.
what her diagnosis is. I said, no matter what, she's federally qualified. You have to bring her. And they
Wow.
did. And they loved her. They did great. It was at the school she ended up starting kindergarten in a couple of years later.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a nice, progress. And so she was ready to go and started school in August of the following year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I called my boss and I said, or my former employer, and I said, okay, Jim, I'm ready to go back to work. And I said, so I'm going to start looking. Could you do me a recommendation letter? I may need to draw unemployment at this point. And he said, why don't you come talk to me?
Wow.
I said, okay. Turns out the same day I called him was the same day that the replacement they had hired for me gave their resignation.
Incredible.
Talk about a master plan, right?
Yes.
So, oh, fine. I was back to work the next week at my old job, walked right back into my same position. Um, yeah, it was pretty cool. And everything was going well. And till we got to about November. And right before Thanksgiving, my husband came to me and said, "Feel this." His heart was going crazy. He was having a heart attack. So we got him to the hospital. Um, they determined that he needed to have a quintuple bypass.
Wow.
So we spent Thanksgiving in the hospital and doing that. And so here we are back on the roller coaster again, right?
Yes.
And sturdy Gertie. And that's what they called me. Ma's got it. Anyway, so I'm trying to work full time again. My boss is kind of looking at me like, "Gee, Chellie, how much more can you take?"
Right.
And you just got through one. And anyway, didn't matter.
And he was probably nervous that he was going to lose you again.
And very much so. So we did not have health insurance again yet.
Wow.
And so here we are facing this.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't scheduled to get my health insurance back until January 1. He needed to have this surgery the day before or the day after Thanksgiving.
Mm.
Do it, whatever.
Yeah.
If we need to sell the house, we'll just do it. And my employer was able to back it up and my start date. And Blue Cross, then there was a 5-day, whatever. By the grace of God, I had full coverage, Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance, and it paid for everything.
Wow, somebody's looking out for you.
I know who's looking out for me. So anyway, we got through that. They said he came through it amazing. We got him home first week of December. At that time, I got a call from my mother telling me that she had been diagnosed with small cell lung cancer.
Oh, man.
Okay, so now we're going to have Thanksgiving and Christmas, and because I'm still having Thanksgiving because that's my holiday. I love to cook
At your house.
at my house, and we always have an open door policy at Thanksgiving. And any of my husband's teammates that were single that didn't have a place to go, whatever the scenario was. So we would always do open door Thanksgiving. Well, it was delayed, but we had it, and I think 30 people showed up. So
I hope they all brought something.
No, they never did.
I think you're nuts.
No, that was my thing. Now, that was my thing. I told my kids when they had Becca, them other grandparents can have any other holiday of the year. Thanksgiving's my day. I'll work with Christmas, Easter, whatever, birthdays. I'll take the day before, the day after, but Thanksgiving was my day. It was something for my husband.
Mm-hmm.
Many years prior, he had said, "Why don't we just do our own Thanksgiving?"
Mm-hmm.
Just built and built and built over the years. Now I'm hoping somebody will bring some stuff, but back then it was different. So I did that. I was very, very grateful that year because of him, because
Yes.
of Rebecca. Everything was going to be okay.
Yes.
Christmas rolled around. My husband was 6 foot, almost 6'3", and about 260. So he was a large man.
Mm-hmm.
Very athletic. So very healthy. Other than that,
Yeah.
and anyhow, he was losing weight, and he kept getting sicker and sicker. And we thought it was the medication. I knew every medication. I knew its side effects and how it was going to affect him. I mean, wrote everything
Mm-hmm.
down, every detail. And back to the doctor. By January, he's down to about 190, maybe. And just getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And so I guess it was about 2 days. Now, this is a lot of doctor's visits, a lot of assumptions. 2 days before Valentine's Day, he just didn't have nothing left. He couldn't eat. He wouldn't. And we had no idea. Again, thought it was the medication. The doctors thought it was the medication. So the day after Valentine's Day, I took him back to the hospital. He was terrible. He didn't want to go, but I took him. His liver was shutting down,
Mm.
and they didn't know why. Thought possibly the medication. At one point in time, I'm leaning over the bed, and he literally died in my arms. And they brought him back, and they told us it don't look good.
How old was he?
Well, I was 44, so he was 55.
Very young.
Yeah. And so stayed in the hospital overnight. They determined that his liver was shutting down completely. They were going to life flight him to KU. And they were going to do a liver transplant. That he met all the other markers, his health everything else was fine. They couldn't figure out what was going on. They got him stabilized. They put him on a machine to clean his blood for the night because he wasn't even stable to take the flight 20 miles down the road. So they got him stable, told us everything's going to be okay, take the long way down, blah, blah, blah. We got this. When I arrived, I was told that he died in life flight. So he had a massive heart attack. I did go ahead and let KU do an autopsy. As it turned out, he had small cell lung cancer that they had not found.
They had done no scans, no blood work.
Oh, they had done all kinds of scans and blood work, but never came to their minds because they always said his lungs were healthy. So they were just so amazed at his recovery after the heart surgery that they weren't even looking for that. It wasn't even on the radar.
Yeah.
But I didn't find that out for 3 months. So for 3 months, I thought the medication is what had killed him. But then 3 months later, I get that. So now I'm dealing with my mother's health crisis, toddler that she still lives with us. And at that point in time, I took full custody. And then my mother passed away the following January. So I was now a widow at 45. Didn't have any systems in place.
Yeah.
And it was just me and her. And here we are.
Did you have life insurance?
Enough to bury him. But that was it. We were prepared for that. That wasn't even thought of. He was going to come through this. He kept telling me, I know I'm going to be okay. You made Becca okay. I know you're going to make me okay, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah. So. And did you feel like a failure, or did you feel that the doctors had messed up with the medication?
Well, at the time I was in total shock.
Right.
Because in my mind, I got to keep going.
Yes.
I've got a little girl that needs me. I got to take care of her. I couldn't stop and really process.
Yes.
And it was just keep moving forward. And that's what I did. Head down and go.
Yeah. Yeah. So emotionally, you were in shock. But even before that with Becca, like, what was the thought process that kept you bearing all this load, still serving your family, still having Thanksgiving? What was it about you that could operate under all this heavy load?
It's my job. It's my job. They're my family. When my mother went through a divorce when I was 15, she kind of went astray, let's say.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't come home a lot, and she'd call me, oh, I'm going to be here for the night, or I'm going to be here. You're strong. You got this. I started working full time and going to school full time when I was 15.
And did you feel like you were parenting her?
Oh, yeah, that was the running joke. Oh, all right, Mom. It wasn't funny. But yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I felt like. And she played into it and thought it was funny, but I didn't find it amusing. Um, your parents, and so I was part of what drives me is I wasn't going to be that.
Yes. Yes. Which could have gone the other way as a teenager.
Oh, absolutely. Because I come from a long line of dysfunction.
Mm.
I wasn't going to be the one.
So
Now
you're
I
going to
did
break the cycle here.
right. That was always my family was going to stick together. My family was going to stick together, and they were always going to be there for each other. Family first. And I was always going to be the mom that my kids could look up to me and be proud of me, no matter what. I did end up dropping out of school because I couldn't take the load of working full time and going to school full time.
And babysitting your mother.
Um, right. Well, yeah. I was pretty much on on my own. There wasn't cell phones back then, so I was home, and then she'd call me and tell me where she landed for the night.
Hmm.
And but I was paying bills.
Hmm.
She was working too, but limited.
Hmm.
Um, so and I just was embarrassed. So I was
Yes.
never going to embarrass my children. But I did go back to school and got my GED and put myself in back to school and got my associates and just kept moving. You got to just keep moving,
Hmm.
bob and weave, and make sure nothing hits you too hard. And yeah, that's how you get through life.
Yeah. So jumping forward again, how old were the boys during the time of your husband's death and the time you were taking care of Becca?
Okay, so I'd always threatened my boys. I was a young mom. I
Hmm.
had my oldest boy when I was 17, and I always threatened them to never make me a grandma before I was 40. Now, I did have, okay, so there's 5 years difference between my oldest and my youngest. And then I had a third pregnancy, and my third son died. And that's a whole nother story. Um, it puts things into perspective. And then I elected not to have any more children moving forward. That was it. I wanted three because I was an only. So
Hmm.
I wanted them to have each other. Yeah.
Yes.
And I always was amazed at big families, and they might have, fought with one another, but no matter what, they were always there for each other. Uh,
Yes.
so I always, anytime I meet somebody that's from a big family, I'm always lots of questions. Really, you guys do things like that? And I wanted that so bad. But anyhow, so if I was 45, then Joshua would have been 17 years younger than that. I can tell you they are now 37 and 32. How's that?
Hmm.
I can't tell you how old they were. They were grown though.
And did
Um,
they consider your husband their dad?
uh, yeah, yes. They had Dad and they had Braddy. That's what they'd called him. Um, but they would call him the old man, or
Hmm.
they very much respected him. It very much affected the whole family. It
Hmm.
was his mom's husband died. It broke our family
Yeah.
really bad. And it's taken a lot of years to put those pieces back together. But we've all come full circle. We've all, yeah, we're still here and we're still standing.
Mhm.
And
And how
so,
did the boys fare during, or even think about the fact that you were sacrificing all this for this little girl? And did they feel neglected at all?
well, Tyler, Rebecca's father, was married now. And so he was living on his own. Now, my oldest son, Joshua, him and his fiance and their little boy actually lived with me, Brad and I, when I had a house full.
No
Brad
kidding.
passed away. Yeah, when Brad passed away. And I wanted to be the Waltons. I wanted a
Wowzers.
big house. I wanted a big house and everybody around and everybody to stay connected all the time.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind. We were ready to move on and have the birds fly away, not too far, but we were ready for all of them to be out of the house. We did choose to take Rebecca on. That was
Mhm.
the choice. And after the accident, there was no choice because there was no one else to take care of her.
Yeah.
Um, so, but Joshua dug in because now I'm having to leave my job. Um, or he dug in after Becca's accident when I left my job to help us financially.
Mhm.
Um, he made pretty good money, and so I kept raising his rent, hoping he'd move, but he wouldn't move. Um, so, um, but there's a reason for everything,
Yeah.
and so that's why he was still there.
Yeah.
Um, but once Brad passed away, he thought he was going to have to take care of mom.
Yeah.
Well, what don't kill you makes you stronger, and I'm tough as nails. And absolutely not. By no means are you going to take care of me. You
Yeah.
need to get out there and take care of your life, and you need to go.
Yeah.
Okay. But I also can't afford to do things the way we used to do things. So
Mhm.
you really do need to go, which made him quite angry because
Yes.
he wanted to be the head of the house now.
Yeah. Yeah. But you had broken the cycle and you didn't want that to happen for your own kids. So if we can move forward,
Mhm.
I'm looking at that thing on your shirt, which looks like a dog with headphones on.
I
And
love him.
how in the world did you end up working for a company that was in Washington? How did you see this online? Were you looking? Did you have another job?
Actually, I did. I was still with the company. Well, I had just left the company. So after my husband passed away, I sold the house. I didn't think I would, but I couldn't take it because
Mhm.
everything was, oh, Brad and I were going to do that. Oh, well,
Mhm.
yeah, we were going to do that.
Totally.
So I sold the house, moved to a really small town. Not that I was in a huge town before, but I was closer to the city and more services. I didn't want to move Rebecca, but one time. I would do it one time. So I moved to this little town, um, about a half an hour past where our farm used to be, because we did have 20 acres at one time. And I am a block away from the school. I'm surrounded by Amish. So I wanted her in a tight knit community so everybody was aware of who she was.
Mhm.
And if she should have problems, understand her background. I wanted that for her. And she
Mhm.
could walk to school, no problem. So I moved down here, but my job was an hour and a half away. And I did that for 3 years
Hmm.
and maybe four, an hour and a half each way. And daycare was not a thing down here. So I did have some neighbors that kind of, kept an eye on her because it left her at home for an hour or so. And we moved down here when she was in second grade. Um, about 3 months before my interview with you,
Mhm.
I had saved a little bit of money and I just pulled it all out and I told him I got to go. I've been
Mhm.
here 10 years. I love you. And I'm still friends with them today. And they were not happy that I was leaving.
No kidding.
But I walked away walking to nothing other than Rebecca and my house down here. And I was going to find something closer or online. And I went and bought me a new computer and started doing some research. And there's a lot of bogus bunk out there.
Mhm.
And so I finally found 3 places that I liked that were legit, you being one of them. Um, I liked my interview with you.
Hmm.
And you were so excited about the company. And I will be frank, I did have one other offer that I
Mhm.
did come through. And it was to make more money, closer to what I was used to making. But I liked you and
Mhm.
liked what you had to say. And for me, working for somebody that I can respect and that is on fire about
Mhm.
what they do, yeah, I want to know more about that. So
Super cool.
um, when you offered me the position, I was like, yeah, I'm going to take this one. If I knuckle down because I don't have a house payment, I was able to sell my house and have a little extra. Not lots, but extra. So no house payment, no car payment. I can knuckle down and I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's been a ride.
Our company was in the major baby stages. And the beginning of you working for us was our very first batch of virtual workers. And it was super rocky.
Oh
Tell me
yeah.
what the first part was like and working with these other virtuals who I really didn't have any experience of hiring. It was
Well,
incredible. It was crazy.
yeah, that would be putting it mildly. Um,
Yes.
yeah, because I would see all kinds of things based on my business experience, and
Yes.
so I just kept going, wow, 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 and I would tell Brian all the time, and I remember he'd go, yeah, well, we're just getting started, and I'm like, are you really going to let this happen?
Yeah.
I just some of the scenarios, and I'm sure you can recall some of them, but they got to a point where they would limit meetings we were having virtually because I would get on a tangent and, and start talking. And I was very talkative and very expressive of my views. And hey, let's put in systems and let's, do this. But again, you were still empathy basically with this expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so far from where we were.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah. And I think I hired 20 virtuals. And today, 2.5 years in, you are the only virtual from all of those 20 that are still with us.
because
Hallelujah.
I'm sturdy Gertie. I was not. And I remember that first season of layoffs, and you laid us all off.
Yeah.
And
And Brian and I
yeah.
cried.
Well, Brian was like, I'm going to miss you. I'm like, yeah. And at that time, then you offered me to come back for the winter season to train on some stuff and to be able to stay on top of the things.
Yeah. No, I had laid everybody off and they had no idea that I had come around that and told you not to speak to anyone about this, that it looked
Right,
like it was going to look like you were also laid off, but I
right.
offered you a position to stay and to keep you. Did I keep you through the winter or did I lay you off? I kept you
No,
through the winter.
you kept me because we had a long phone conversation. I wasn't sure if you were going to touch on that or not. So I was kind of not going to mention it. That was so hard not to tell Brian
Yeah.
um, because he was like, Chellie, I'm really going to miss you. It's been
Yes.
great, And it was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to miss you too. Not. Um, but yeah, you kept me because during our conversation, I said, right now I was in a position where I could take a cut in hours. And so we went through, it was rough that first winter
I can
um,
imagine.
because there weren't very many, we're not very many hours at all. And I am that person, especially I would say, hey, can I just leave? Um, Years ago, I was a waitress and you always cut staff. And I knew I was last in and I wasn't at command. So I always felt low man on totem pole
Mm-hmm.
and command took precedence. So I'd say, hey, Liz, we're not busy. Can I leave? Yeah, go ahead and leave. Appreciate you, blah, blah, blah. So I was able to do that and I survived that first winter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Second winter was a little better. And
Do you remember how many franchisees we had when you started and how many there were that second winter?
I don't, but I remember it was more. And that second winter, we were also doing the Zooper. And, but man,
It was
I
a
prefer,
CRM that we had built.
yes. And yeah, I wasn't fond of that.
Yeah.
So I used to cross my fingers and hope I wouldn't get one of those calls. I did, but because I preferred SA at the time, but I'm liking Copilot.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. So you came into Service Autopilot, which has a lot of layers, which we were using at Command. We
Mhm.
switched phone systems during that time. Like Augusta is constantly changing, constantly improving. We're building this huge thing from scratch. And
Mhm.
so you're watching all the fumbling and all the changes that we were making constantly, which like you said, you were thinking, what in the world?
Oh,
many
constant,
times.
constant change. Don't get too used to it because it's going to change. The wind
Yes.
will blow and it will change, but always for the better.
Yeah. So did
Always for
that
the better.
second spring rush, did it kind of hit hard and was it chaotic?
No. Well, for me, it wasn't because I'd already been through the storm. That first year was crazy. Once they kept let me out of training, um, because we have all the different services that we could do, and we were doing estimates and this, that, and the other. And I was better on the phone, and there was too many virtuals that were avoiding the phones. By the end of the day, had no voice,
Yeah,
because
I
it was
remember that.
springtime anyway, so my allergies were up. And so normally I have a pretty good phone voice, but by the end of the shift, I was talking to people like this and still
Mhm.
answering the phone. And yeah, it was fun. And I kind of miss it now. Then last year, uh, it was like riding a bike. We picked up, but we still had it was still good flow. We still stayed very busy. I still very much was heavily on the phones. That's that's what my safe zone.
Yeah, that's where you shine.
That's my
But
safe
now
zone.
this year has been completely different for you. We started Copilot, we transferred every franchise company over to Copilot,
Mhm.
and you were still on the phone at that time. You're still on the phone now, but we brought in Max, and Max is
Mhm.
our AI who answers the phone before us so that we never miss a phone call. And
Right.
some franchisees opted in, some opted out. Max was not trained well at all. So we had a lot of a blowback from his behavior, and we've
Hmm.
improved him over time. So,
Yeah.
so many changes this year. And what is your position now with me wanting to move you up in the company, more responsibility, feeling disconnected from the team, I'm sure at the beginning? How
Right.
is it now for you?
I like it. I'm learning more in depth
Yeah.
things. I do still occasionally grab some calls, or I'll have a day where I'm like, I'm just going to take calls today,
Yes.
because I need to get in that rhythm. I like
Hmm.
that rhythm. I like dealing with the clients. I also love interacting with the franchisees.
Hmm.
For me, it's personal for them because
Yes.
I've always worked for the small businessman. My family, the guys were always construction or, manual labor.
Hmm.
So I know what that's like. I
Hmm.
remember seeing it, when I was a kid, the fellas coming home and then my husband, they come home, they're tired. They work so hard. So anything that I can do, whether it be with the directly with the clients or on their requests or anything I can do to make it better,
Yeah.
make it easier for them where they don't have to worry. That's where I like to be. That's that
Yes.
place I like
So
to
you
be.
really have a heart for the franchisee. And
Oh
now
yeah.
we have you on a specific task and what we call a chat and in a phone queue where the franchisees can call directly to seasoned agents and get some help. And how has that been for you?
I like it. They call, oh, Chellie, thank God it's you.
Yeah.
I'm calling to talk to you.
Yeah.
So it's real nice to be able to help them with their problems when they're out in the field, maybe dealing with a client that, something's come through on a to-do and they need to address it right then and there. So I like that. I like that one-on-one
Yeah.
with them.
And it hasn't always been roses because they are coming and they are also learning the systems which are
Mhm.
not perfected, have a
Right.
lot of frustration with command, and of course would take it out on the employees, which was you. And you've had some rocky relationships with some of the franchisees and massive interaction where they have no context, they're still learning,
Right.
and they would lash out and say inappropriate things. And we had a specific incidence of that one time. And just
Mhm.
tell me how Mike responded to that kind of treatment of you.
Um, in as little words as possible, he had my back.
Yeah.
He absolutely had my back, which made me feel very supported.
Hmm.
I felt terrible. It did still make me feel terrible that he had to do that for me.
Yeah.
But by the same token, I was very touched that he took that stance.
And he went
Um,
before all of Augusta Nation and
Absolutely.
defended you. And what did he say if anybody ever treated you or any agent like that again?
He wasn't going to deal with that
Yeah.
at all in any form or fashion. And I don't think I've seen an incident like that since.
Yeah, it was
Um,
pretty powerful. And
it
I
was.
always back up the agents. And if they are putting their all into it and being everything they can and taking care of the franchisees' customers, there is no way we're going to tolerate that from any customer as well as the franchisee because we are supposed to be partners. It's an
Right,
interesting relationship between us and the franchisee because they're our customer. They are also our partners in what we're
right,
building here.
right, exactly. So it's kind of two different things all in one. Um, each of them is an individual, but yet they're part of something bigger.
Yes. And there's
So,
a lot of coaching of them to be in the systems. When they get out of the systems, we have to work with them on that as we're building them, and they're not perfect.
right. And we're learning, which is the thing I do love about Augusta is um, they're willing to say, hey, let's try this. Okay, that's not working so well. Let's pivot and go
Mhm.
this direction. So it's just a set hard line. It's always learning, always trying something new, always growing. And anytime you're growing, just like when you're a kid and your knees hurt, from growing pains. And I see that sometimes when we
Mhm.
have our growing pains at command center, but I see everybody just knuckle down, come
Mhm.
together as a team, and move to that next step.
Yeah.
And I like that. What that incident that you mentioned, that back then, what was wonderful is number one, when that incident happened, I felt terrible because I also remember when the call went out for that particular franchisee that he was in a cash crunch,
Yeah.
and we dug in and pulled him through that cash crunch.
Yes.
And yes, months prior, but so we had always been there for him. So I was always very supportive of him. And so when I let them down, um, it was personal for me.
No kidding.
Um, but it's come full circle,
Yeah, and he
and
loves you.
yes, and that makes me feel good
Yeah.
that I was able to regain his confidence.
Yeah.
That to me is very important.
Yeah. So last year we made a big change, and instead of hiring more US virtuals, we went to the Philippines and we used a company called Shepherd, which we would put out the qualifications of what we wanted for a position. And then the good shepherd would bring forward applicants and then we would interview them
Hmm.
and see if they would be a good fit. We chose the ones we wanted and brought them in, first of all, as no vocals, like no one on the phone,
Right.
because the franchisees had a concern about that. They wanted them to be able to, their customers to be able to understand them, be English speaking, have no accent. But what we had found is when anybody even talked to anyone from the deep south, their accents were just as strong and you could
Right.
hardly hear them. There was no difference. And
Right.
so we brought in these highly trained people, some that had been with large companies and they had been in call centers, some of them for 8 to 10 years. They worked with Amazon, they worked with lawn care companies, and some of them all the way to Australia to Jim's Mowing, which has thousands and thousands of locations. So
Hmm.
we are really have been really privileged. Another thing about the Philly, we call them the Philly team affectionately, and they are the kindest, most cooperative people who want feedback, who always want to get better. They
Yep.
came in as skilled. The next year, we hired only for phones, which was crazy. and started training them from scratch. And tell me how that has been for you and how that's developed for you as being one of their main support people.
I love the fact that they're so eager to learn.
Yes.
But with lawn care, if you don't have the background in it, it's hard.
Yes.
It really is hard. There's some
They have no
terminology.
grass.
And yeah, and I was going to say, I'm from the States, so I understand most of the terminology, and I know I struggled that first year to get it all down pat. And with each location and regionally, because what would go on the East Coast isn't necessarily what's going to go on the West Coast.
Right.
So snow removal, not snow removal, scalping lawns. Who scalps their lawns? I remember that first call I ever got. What? You want to do what?
Totally.
Or kill my lawn. I want to kill my lawn first.
All this is by request. It's not
Right.
just comprehending something,
Right.
new.
So there is no, we can teach people, whether they're Philly or US or directly their command center, we can teach them the basics, but you can't prepare them for every scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it has had its challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And I think through time and space, because they are who they are and
Mm-hmm.
their want to get better, I think we're at a place now where we've got a really good team that are going to continue. And by this time next year, they're going to be rocking it.
Yeah.
They're amazing at this point.
Yes.
But by next year, oh yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So last year, the challenge for the franchisees with Command Center is that we were so busy and so overloaded that we had to cut scheduling and invoicing for them, which is a huge blow to some of them.
Right.
We also had to cut, we were like 2-3 days behind getting, estimates out. We were missing tons of phone calls, and that has been solved 100% this year by having Max to be able to answer the phones and to have so many people getting their estimates out in minutes.
Yeah, we can actually work a 40-hour week rather than, I remember working 10, 12-hour days, working Saturdays. And from the first season to the second season to this year, it is just, we're still stressed. But the stress level is so different.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
now we are staffed enough and we have enough people that are eager to learn and always learn more. And we have all the positions filled.
Yes.
And so everybody can work a regular workload and do one thing at a time, do it well, and move on to the next.
Yeah. And help the company not to be drowning in overtime costs.
Exactly.
Yeah. So our challenges this year for the franchisees and their frustration has been the phone calls, has been all of us. And like you said, there's anomalies on every call. There's so many scenarios, millions, really insane, that can be thrown at you. And I remember one team member, the very first day, her very first call, a customer was asking for sod to be put in front of his son's grave. How do you respond to that on the phone in a job that we take, no minimum? Like it has to be worth it for the franchisee. And you're talking like 6 pieces of sod, and the poor call person and us, like you put them on hold. How do I respond to this? So many things that will always be coming up.
Right.
And so for the franchisee, sorry, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm just saying, they come out of nowhere.
Yes.
And you just got to wing it. You got to learn to wing it. And the longer you hear, the more you wing it.
Yeah. And it makes it, to where the agents are scared to answer the phone. So we've had massive frustration on the franchisee's part, massive work now. Our number one focus this year is to really create a team that dominates their sport, that is not a glorified call center, but full office staff. We handle every office staff We do P for P, and in our industry, it's very popular. And so we do their P for P calculations. Employees get those every day at the end of the day from our stellar P for P team.
Right.
We do QuickBooks, we do calls, estimates, everything you can think of that an office staff would do. We take on all of those tasks, which we call full service for any franchisee who wants that. So having all of these things, it's not just, oh, we do one service, which is answer the phone. So what kind of things have we put in place most recently in the past year, but most recently that they all love and that they're all learning from?
As far as the franchisees?
No, as far as like the game day videos.
Oh, well, you got me at a loss because we've got so many new things. We always got new things, but I know with recently you've started the game day footage again, so that we have active examples,
Mm-hmm.
especially for the Philly team that are a little less seasoned. So for me, example, from my perspective, I've got 3 spring rushes in.
Yes.
So not too much surprises me anymore. Now, once in a blue moon, they might still get one on me, but um, to know how to pivot on those calls that are like, that's completely from left
Mm-hmm.
field. Where did
Yeah.
that come from? But you know how to recover.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, but absolutely we can check into that. We do that. I don't know what I would have done had somebody asked me about laying sod on a grave other than, well, let me get you an estimate for that to make sure that I get that lead in the system. Even if we didn't provide the estimate that time, it may come later that we can use that lead.
And it was a service the franchisee wouldn't have provided because the estimate was so low, it wasn't even at Augusta's minimum.
Right. I would have still got that lead. I'm all about getting the lead into the system and get as
Mm-hmm.
much contact information because, then the next thing you know, you've got to send them a fall cleanup. Well, that
Mm-hmm.
lead came in. Now, maybe we couldn't sell that first job, but we can sell this one because now he needs this. And he didn't
100%.
know he needed that until he got the email from the lead that we had put into the system. So,
Yes, yes. So the game day videos, this is also different than different companies because we are using live examples. We are using recordings for our company. We're not randomly taking phone
right.
calls to practice on. This makes the team members uncomfortable. And I think the very first or second one, you were a person that we took an example from. And we
Oh,
were
you took
we were not
several of
just
mine. Now,
using
be
good.
fair.
Yes,
Be fair, you took several of my
I
less
did.
exemplary calls in the first season that you and Mike did this, and you dissected everything. I jokingly tease with you about it now because you started doing it again this year to fire everybody up to
Yep.
get them used to it. So, you're like, oh, I know you can handle this. And I thought, you didn't know me back then. How did you know I could handle? It seemed like every game day, one of my calls was on there. I
Yes.
thought, I'm either doing really bad or why is she picking on me? And, but now I know it's because before you knew I was sturdy Gertie, you knew.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
when I do calls now, I'm trying not to embarrass the employee, but learn from them, everybody learn from them. And so instead of saying, oh my goodness, they should have never said that, it's more like, everybody try this, try
right,
to enunciate like this, try to make your voice more kind and listen to your calls. And they've all said listening to their calls has been brutal, and I'm like, well, maybe you really sound brutal, and then we'll laugh, but
right.
it's true.
It's possible.
I used to sing, and I would have people that sang with me refuse to listen to their own stuff, and they didn't know why I would. And I said, I have no idea how bad I sound until I start listening to try to improve. So this has
Exactly.
been huge. It is a massive effort on my part to listen to tons of calls and to put these together with my regular load. But
Right.
it's something I want to do. We'll never be incredible above all other companies unless we do this. And so I have to do it.
Well, because of the, oh, what's the word I want? And we use it all the time. Because of the way everything's structured at Augusta, we, it's not put out there that we're criticizing one another.
Yes.
And that's something that you really got to learn, because coming from other companies, they're critical, and they are shaming you or belittling you. And that is generally how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Until you really get fully embraced or engrossed into the culture at Augusta, then you finally come to a place where you're like, oh, okay, I can take that,
Yeah.
because I know it's the intent is to make me better. And when I'm better, we are better.
Yeah.
So, it's as a team thing. So, and if people over in the Philly team can take some of my oops and go, oh, I've had a
Yeah.
call like that before. Now I know how to answer it. Hey, great. I just helped 2 agents, which is where my mindset's at nowadays. When you start taking phone calls away from me, my focus is to duplicate myself.
Yes. I love
Yeah.
it.
And
Yes.
so, because I obviously, just like you, had to start passing things down. I have to put myself sometimes and think about Liz. I'm like, okay, Liz has had to give up a lot of stuff and
Mm-hmm.
start to trust people. So I need to start training these people to know the things I know. So
Mm-hmm.
I've made myself very available um, for the Philly team and anybody else, but mostly
Mm-hmm.
the Phillies reach out to me a lot once they realized I was virtual and I wasn't at command center. Even
Yes.
some of them now are still saying, I thought you were at command.
Yes,
Mhm.
100%. And that's what we want to do in our culture is include everyone in that. But what I've seen with the Phillies that does not happen a lot in the US now is the massive appreciation for the job and their desire to be better and always want to be better. They take all
Mhm.
feedback so seriously. And we've had to let some of them go because there are certain concepts that they can't follow the bouncing ball. Customers asking
Mhm.
this, just answer the question,
Right.
which makes a long phone call, which makes them look like they're bumbling around. And I
Mhm.
have to protect the franchisees. And so after 10, 15 calls, we have to pull them. But
Right.
there's and it rips my heart out because I know I've heard from them that it's triple the income that they ever had, and
Right.
some have been able to buy land and
Um,
cover medical bills, and told me that
wow.
it's life changing for them. And so, if I have to let somebody go, I know what I'm doing, and it
Right.
is incredibly difficult, but the ones that are giving of themselves and know that that could happen, it's been life changing for them.
Right. Well, with any business, you've got to remove that personal touch.
Yes.
And I've always been able to do that. I've always been real good about being able to be that bridge between management and staff,
Yes.
so that staff fully understands that it's not personal.
Yes.
Business, it's a business decision. And unfortunately, you are working for a business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when you do that mass hiring, you know that it's going to happen.
Yes.
You're going to weed some out,
Yeah.
and you're going to be down to the select few,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to then give you a much more solid base to build on.
Yeah.
So, and
So
I
you've
think,
been a massive help in our culture, helping us to have virtuals feel more a part of the team. We have a chat that's called a break room chat where we put things on to kind of, for instance, we just had Star Wars come out again. And
right.
it's crazy because I'm hearing the Phillies say, oh, yeah, my husband, he had to take the whole day, had to watch all these. And then people in the US, this was my experience. There's
Right.
no differentiation because we're all experiencing the
Right.
same thing, which is super cool. And every Monday we have what's called a jam, and people give feedback from what they did on the weekend, accomplishments, disappointments, and people say,
Mhm.
oh, my love cup is full after the weekend because I did this, this, and this. Helps others get to know them. So,
Right.
how has your experience overall changed Augusta what has it done in your life, and how have you been affected by Augusta?
Oh, I won't go nowhere else. Um, Augusta for me, I was at that point where I could not continue to raise my granddaughter and work an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
I needed to be able to work at home,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
It's not easy to find. I did go through COVID um, at my other company, and I was able to work from home, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when I decided I can do this.
Yes.
There are options out there now,
Mm-hmm.
and so Augusta gives me that ability to raise Rebecca, be present for her. She's going into teenage years,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
And I want to be here for everything because these are the years where they're telling me that she could have poor judgment. She could have whatever
Yeah.
because of that frontal lobe damage. So um, the hours that I have, um, I'm here. And she knows it. She gets home and I'm here. And that's what she always asks me. I just wish you were here more.
Mm-hmm.
And so Augusta has given me that. And I can live comfortably, be here for my family, be here for my granddaughter, enjoy those moments. Um, yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. And I love having you on the team. And like you said, next year, the virtual team is only going to get better and better
Mhm.
until they really, like I said, dominate their sport. They're going to be so good. We're trying to improve everybody to be better than any company. Like there is no competition. That's our goal.
Right. Yep.
Yes.
I think we're going to be there.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot more cohesion now. When I first came on as virtual, and you were just learning about how to deal with virtual people, it felt very separated. There's command center,
Yes.
and then there's the virtuals, where you're
Yes.
part of command. It's not that way anymore. It is very much. I mean, yeah, we have the Philly team, and we have command, and then we have Chellie. She's somewhere in between. She's not a
Yes.
Philly. She's not a command. I'm like the last man standing out here in the middle of Missouri, but I love it here. I'm like the bridge.
Yeah. It's so
Um,
cool. It's so
it is.
cool.
It
And
is.
as
It's been fun
as
to watch.
yeah, 100%. And I appreciate you and basically have you in a management position and know that whatever you say to the Phillies, it's good. I can trust it. You've
Yeah,
got Augusta's back and you can train them well, which I
and I
appreciate.
appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that trust. From the beginning, I always was, because that's always where I was. That's the shoe
Hmm.
I wore for a lot of years. So to literally take the pay cut, take the position cut,
Hmm.
it was very hard for me to bite my tongue a lot
Yeah.
because I knew. And it was like, oh, I have to see more. I have to see more. Brian would tell me, okay, I'll give you a little peek behind the curtain. And so little by little, that curtain kept opening up and I kept learning more and just devouring it. And, fortunately, you gave me that opportunity to trust me in small pieces,
Hmm.
which is hard because you hadn't dealt with virtuals. You didn't know what. And some of the virtuals you did deal with weren't necessarily trustworthy.
Yeah.
But that's just like anybody in our society, and you had to weed it out. And I was able to prove myself
Hmm.
that I'm here. You got me 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day if you need me. Saturdays once in a while.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm just here. What do you need? How can I
Super
help you
cool.
today?
And as with a lot of stellar employees in a business, I had early in my time at Augusta where I would work in the field to help the guys. When we had Mike get caught in the dump truck, I suddenly was out there doing estimates and deliveries and loading the product and running the team
Mhm.
during that time and learning as I went. And I would have customers, guys that worked in their businesses where I would come and load their product. They would come in and ask me to work for them. And I was like, you've got to be kidding. You had the guts to just walk in here while I'm on the clock and ask me to work for you. I'm like, definitely not.
Right.
And so every great employee is going to have other owners and people, managers. I do it. I walked
Mhm.
into a hotel And this guy was running the place like he owned it, like not with an ego and being a jerk. He was incredible. And you could tell he was in an environment where he was the only one doing it, unappreciated, going above and beyond, helping me with my luggage himself. And he was running the front desk. And I'm like, dude, if you need a job, if you want to be appreciated, here's my card.
Right. Right.
No, I didn't, because I didn't want to do the poaching when he was on his job. I said, I work at Augusta Lawn Care. Look me up online if you ever want a job. And so, of course, this is going to happen to you too. So tell me a little bit about that experience and how do you deal with it and come to a decision? A lot of times it's a better offer.
Right. Well, I've been in the past been approached by headhunters in other positions.
Mhm.
I've had clients, hey, Chellie, I could pay you more. Why don't you come over here? Um, and it's always tempting and it's always very flattering. But at some point, you have to make the decision. Sometimes work is not always about the money. Sometimes it's about the job itself. And, what do you want? Really,
Right,
what do you want? I'm at an age now where I am, what do I want?
right.
20 years ago, I was all about making that money, prior to my husband's heart attack, even his first heart attack. I was about making that money and growing. And I still sometimes want to get in there. And I think about you and that drive that you have to help Mike build Augusta. And I love being on your coattails, but I just don't think I want to be in that push anymore. I kind of
Yes.
like the pace that I'm at now. Job offers are always flattering though, and they always make you think. And but sometimes you just have to decide where your priorities lie. And right now, my priorities are with Augusta because it allows me to take care of my number one priority, which is Rebecca.
Yes. And I have come out. Just hang in there for me.
Yeah, I saw you leave me.
Yes, keep talking.
Well, but I love Augusta. There's things that we haven't touched on that I'm not necessarily comfortable with sharing, but for a few years after my husband passed away, I wasn't always in my right mind. Um, that's how I say it. I was on vacation. I was really trying to figure out who I was as a individual, whereas I'd always been part of a unit. Um, so learning how to be my own person, as a whole rather than being a part of a whole.
Yeah.
So I made some less than perfect choices for a couple of years. I mean, nothing bad, but I was looking for somebody to complete me because I was missing that,
Mhm.
that partnership. And so unfortunately, what little bit I did have saved, I went through it. And but Augusta's allowed me to right all those wrongs,
Mhm.
spend more time with Rebecca. I'm at a place now where I'm enjoying my life. I
Yeah.
really am. So
Yeah.
I feel
So,
like Augusta was that thing I needed to be able to make everything else happen.
mhm. And can you hear me now, but with a little echo?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. So we will wrap up today. And I
Okay.
really want to hear, do you have any quote or any of the Audible books from the team that you would like to share with everyone?
Well, I don't know about from an Audible book, but one thing, one of my very first jobs in accounting, I went to work for this gentleman who was a general contractor that built Radio Shacks and Hallmark stores coast to coast. And I was a brand new bookkeeper. And I was always so scared because I was getting $100,000, $1 million checks. And I'm like, that's too many zeros. Um, I was very intimidated. And I was good, but I was still young. And he commended me with, and at that time you could still smoke in the office, and he smoked the stinkiest fat cigars. And this old gentleman walked into my office one day, and I'm about in tears, but I'm working myself to death. And he said, honey, I want to tell you something. Do one thing at a time. Do it well, and then move on to the next. He said, and everything else will work itself out. So now in those times of stress, I hear, do one thing at a time. Do it well.
Mhm. I love it.
And I've been really pushing that with some of the fillies lately. Hey, just do one thing at a time, because if you try to do so many things, you're going to make more mistakes. Speed will come, get accurate.
Yeah. Eat the
So
elephant one bite at a time is our motto.
exactly. I love that. I do use that the other day, as a matter of fact. I'm going to eat this elephant one bite at a time. And my granddaughter was like, what?
I love it. So just wrapping up, what would you say to somebody in a position that they see the benefit of a company that's growing from nothing? How do they try to keep a vision in mind of what could be ahead like you've done?
Well, I think that comes with wisdom, with age, with experience, and I've had enough other experiences. I did work for corporate America years ago. I didn't like it. I prefer that smaller feel, where and I know you, and it becomes personal.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, even though I technically work for command, when I answer that phone for a particular franchisee or for his client, I'm being personal for him. So for that minute, I work for Brian in Atlanta, Brian and Jeremy, or I work for Ryan in Corpus, or I work for, Jeff out there in Sandwich. For me, right then and there, I only work for them.
Yeah.
So I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm helping them grow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm helping you grow and command grow, but I'm helping them. And the better I am at my job, the easier it is on them during spring rush and throughout the year.
Yeah. So even having somebody offer you a job, you are able to affect more people, more companies, and do something bigger by being part of Augusta.
Right. And that is how I see it.
Yeah.
So, even though some franchisees and the particular location we're talking about is a phenomenal location, and they're growing, and that's awesome. And I'd love to be part of that, but I think I am most impactful where I'm at.
Yeah.
So, and so unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, but
Yeah.
I'll always be command. I'll always be command. But I love watching these guys grow, and I love being able. So
Yeah. So I will let you go. People are
Okay.
hearing this annoying echo from me, and so I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate having you on the team. And any final words you want to share?
Nope, nothing other than I love y'all, and we'll just stay strong and continue to grow Augusta, and let's see what we can do next spring rush.
100%. All right. You have a great day, and thank you so much.
All right. We'll see you Monday.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.